So here's the situation. Children and youth in low-income countries are less likely to receive any education, either formal or informal, particularly marginalized groups, including girls and children or youth with disabilities.
People with disabilities are the largest minority, comprising 15% of the global population. Yet, approximately 150 million children with disabilities continue to face challenges in accessing equitable, inclusive, quality education.
People with disabilities are most often forgotten, marginalized, and pushed aside. Our goal is the journey to self-reliance and to transform country systems. We want to make sure that everybody is included. We can't risk exclusion of a big piece of our population, preventing them from getting the skills they need for successful, productive lives. We have a responsibility to include these populations.
So why are we talking about disability-inclusive education? USAID has always done programming in this area to some extent. USAID's new education policy places even greater emphasis on the need to ensure that our education programming across the board is equitable and inclusive of persons with disabilities.
Equity and inclusion means putting into practice universal design for learning principles. We're actually putting that towards reforming teacher training, materials, curriculum, and infrastructure. All of that needs transformation, and we want to break that cycle of continued marginalization. We want to change that system to be accessible, inclusive, and equitable for all. Inclusive education policy and practices help improve learning skills and attitude for all children and youth, not just children with disabilities, but all children.
The policy is also underpinned by 6 guiding principles, one of which is promoting equity and inclusion. And this doesn't only pertain to primary education programming, but equity and inclusion is a principle that cuts across all of USAID's education programming, from the early years through tertiary programming. If we look at marginalization in general, you can think of different groups, probably, of people who come to mind: people with disabilities, women and girls in some circumstances, people of ethnic minorities. But then when you look at each one of those groups per se, looking at children with disabilities, for example, there's also diversity among that group. And there are also these multiple layers that add to a person's identity and may or may not contribute to their further marginalization. This is the idea that we call intersectionality.
What do we do now? How do we move forward? I encourage you to look at the Disability How-To Note. There's a wealth of resources that are foundational documents that will help you think about how to design questions, program cycle analysis, and how to move forward. There's plenty of information there.